Bill, how you doing today, man?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having a conversation with me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to learn. We're talking like offline. There's so much to cover. You've written a book. You have a fruit farm. You were at Transform this year. Like you're active on LinkedIn. You're someone that wanted to get into HR. I mean, there's a lot of things that recruiters are going to learn from you today. So I'm excited that we finally were able to kind of make it happen,
Yeah,
schedules and all.
yeah, me too. We spoke, I think, at the end of last year, and here we
Yeah.
are 5 months later, finally doing it. So I'm excited to be here with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Likewise, it's crazy how time flies. I feel like all of January I was making like, how's your new year going? How's your new year? And I was like kind of getting away with that at the end of March. I'm like, how's the year starting off? How's the quarter? Now it's April. It's like I gotta come up with something new
Exactly.
in my messaging. So that's how quickly it happens.
Yeah, it's already 2025 basically.
Exactly, right. Yeah, see like the chart. It's like 25%, through the year, and on Monday we're gonna have no sun. So I don't. It's all happening pretty quick. Um, I, but well, cool. Well, let's dive into it. I know there's a lot to cover, but I'm curious because you mentioned it before we hopped on. Like you wanted to get in HR. I know giving back is big to you. So once you got to start from the beginning, like how did you get into the HR recruiting world?
Um, well, I mean, I never can tell a short story, but I know we have a finite amount of time, so I'll try my best to not be meandering. But for me, HR is literally the job that I always wanted to do when I figured out what I wanted to do when I grew up. I was working in retail and got hired and I was doing really well. A few months in, the regional HR manager came in and said, "Hey, Bill, we want to talk to you about succession planning." I said, "I have no clue what this means," and she told me about it. And then I was like, "Well, how can I do the job that you're doing?" And so it took me on a path to get into HR, and I've held every role in HR, and as both an individual contributor and as a manager, and as ultimately the head person of HR. And I love it, and I think that I understand it pretty well. I think
Yeah.
an HR person who has a business mind, but I've been lucky to work with some really great mentors who've taught me the way. This is the way, and that's it. So as far as recruiting, I started working, in the space as a technical recruiter. Learned some really great tools, and then in a good way, it became something I was really good at. Initially, I wasn't a fan of it, but as time went on, I was good at it. And then if we want to fast forward many, many, many years later, I started TPC, and COVID happened shortly thereafter, and I found myself helping clients hire and scale very, very quickly. And then I slowly amassed a small team, and I have a very specific way of doing things, and just told the team that I worked with to follow my lead, and we got a
Yeah.
lot of positive feedback. And I feel like I've gone 25 years and maybe 2 minutes, but that's basically the story.
Yeah. Well, and to give context, and I know people can read this in the summary. So you have your company now is Think People.Culture, right? TPC.
Mhm.
You also wrote a book, right? Which we'll link to, called "Don't Suck at Recruiting," which is one of my favorite titles for anything ever.
Mhm.
I think it might have to be a module in my program at some point, which is great. And you talk about, again, really helping, right, hiring managers, like talk about candidate experience and really helping them stand out. And I think it's really interesting in the book, because these are things that, as for us as recruiters, it's like, yeah, of course, but these are things that hiring managers are messing up every single day, like all day, every day. And a lot of recruiters come to me like, well, I don't know, like, how do I get their attention? I'm like, you have to stand out, and all the problems, and all the things they're messing up. You just got to talk about them, right? So I love that you wrote a whole book about it. How did that come to be? Like, when did you get the idea? Like, what was that process like of just writing a book? Yeah,
Yeah.
or this book?
So for me, it was just I'm very no nonsense. If you know me,
Yeah,
I mean, I publicly, I certainly have a certain image. It's close to my real image in real life, but I just have no time I don't suffer fools. And I'm very direct with people. And I think that sometimes people don't do the things that they need to do, and I get frustrated by it. So when, I was helping clients with this and on a larger scale in 2020, early 2020, I would bring on a client, told them that I'm very specific about how I do things, and if they want to be able to hire people at the pace they want to, that they need to actually follow this process. And some of them did it happily, some of them did it a bit begrudgingly, and some of them just refused to do it. And those people, I just said, thanks, I don't need to work with you anymore. But when I was seeing sort of a pattern and hearing stories from both, leaders who go, wow, this works really well. This is amazing. I can't believe that we've just not done this before. Or candidates said, hey, I really appreciate the personal touch that you guys have shared with us and actually walking us through the journey. And speaking to friends who are in HR, and we talked about Transform earlier. And one of the things that happened for me during the pandemic was I started slowly becoming more active on LinkedIn and having conversations and sharing my perspective. And so some friends I've met said, Bill, you're talking about this all the time. You should just literally write a book on how to do it the right way. And I thought, hey, this is kind of a good idea, but also it's terrifying, completely terrifying. And so in the course of a few weeks, I wrote what I thought was like a semi-draft and had friends and family look at it. And then, had a little bit of support from like thoughts and ideas from like newly created AI. And I was like, wow, this is a great idea. I should write about this, right? And so collectively wrote the book. And then, took me about 5 months of sort of sitting on it until I said I'm going to pull the trigger, because I was terrified that everyone would read it and go, this is the dumbest thing ever. But it actually has propelled me even greater in the space. And I've come to really appreciate the candidate experience and employer branding and recruitment, and really just treating both the employer side and the candidate side in a sort of nurturing way. And it's fun. It's a fun experience. I can't say terrifying enough. But once it was out there, honestly, no one really cared, even though they concurrently cared.
That's really well put, that last piece, and that's a really big takeaway. Something I drive home all the time is no one really cares about us individually, right? Until you give them a reason to care, right? Or you become a client or whatever else. But people. If someone say, I tell people, evaluate yourself for a day, even for an hour. How quickly do you move on from things that, if you were thinking that the other person was probably everything to that person's day? Right. And it's like, that's both like humbling, but also freeing. It's like, oh, I could just go create stuff and put it out there and let's just see what happens. So I love that you did that, and you just kind of wrote it and put it out there. And for those that don't know, you do outsourced recruitment. So you have recruitment, you have HR consulting, right? Like, I think you do some like fractional HR work as well, right? Like, you have an umbrella of services, not just say like agency recruiting, correct?
Correct. It's a little over half of the business that we do is recruitment. The name of the company is Think People.Culture, is because we help organizations think more strategically about their people and culture. And the culture work, even though it's not something that's done in 2 weeks' time, it's certainly a long journey. That's the work that I like the most in performance management and employee engagement, and helping leaders get the value of HR. I love that so much. But recruitment's fun too. You in the candidate experience, you really can set yourself apart as an employer by branding the right way and literally just treating people with respect. And so, I have a suite of services, but this is actually the largest part of our business.
Okay. And so I think a lot of people listening would be interested by that, because it's almost like, a lot of recruiters have questions like, how do I leverage beyond just say if I'm doing contingent recruiting retained, but I've learned all this stuff maybe about HR or on the side or just in general about culture. Like, did you start recruiting when you launched Think People.Culture? Or did it start as recruitment? Did it start as HR solutions? Like, I think the question is like, how did you start to branch out from your core competency in the beginning? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, so initially it was just a few clients, and it was doing basically everything except for payroll from the fractional HR side. So you need help. You're between 100 and 300. You want someone who like knows what they're doing. First was a couple of friends, and then friends of friends, and then like referred. And so being that I did every function of HR, some people said like, can you help us hire 6 people? Sure, here's a plan. And then, that word of mouth got out. And so someone's like, oh, actually, we're going to be hiring 40 people. Can you help with this? And so it then became a thing. And then it's just word of mouth. And then, found some projects online from some, freelancing stuff. And then just like, it just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. And then, it was me initially trying to juggle everything. And I was not able to do that. So, 2 becomes 4 becomes 10, and it just became a thing. And so that's how both the recruitment piece became the majority of our business, and also the writing of the book, and having a bit of a voice when it comes to some aspects of recruitment.
Absolutely. And it just, again, what I'm hearing is like you just leaned into your strengths, like what you knew that you did well, and kind of put it out there that you're willing to solve these problems. It's like that first big step, and then people, oh, I got to make cold calls, I got to do my cold email campaign. It's like, or you could just like update your profile, let your network know, and kind of start there, and kind of and build from there. So that's super cool. And how did LinkedIn change, like, how did like posting on LinkedIn and building kind of that brand, when did you start to kind of see the impact in terms of getting opportunities and more clients?
Well, we all see people who are, several 100,000 or tens of thousands of followers, and one never knows how you get there when you have 20 followers and
40 connections.
And no one, you write something that you put hours into, and you think that you're crafting it perfectly, and you post it and there's zero likes.
You're the only like. Been there.
Right. Even today, with as many people that I have follow me, I'm like, oh my God, I literally worked on this for a week and I have 7 likes. But the dopamine hits are strong for sure. But what my business manager told me, she's like, Bill, if you want to have people recognize you as a leader in this space, you need to do a couple of things. You definitely need to write a book. Like, that's just what you need to do. In addition to like hearing the feedback from my friends, because I share this with her. And you need to just consistently post on social media. Like, LinkedIn is literally the place that you can go and find other people who are smarter than you, who know more than you, who have followers, and if they post something, share what your perspective is. And so I started investing in that. And then secondly, she's like, you've got to write your own stuff. And so I would post a quote, I would post to this. And so every single day. And then after about a month, I started seeing a little bit of growth, a little bit of likes, a little bit of comments. And then, after I wrote the book, then people like you were asking me to be on their podcast, and that actually started getting a lot more traction, and I got a few clients out of it. I write blogs, I write, white papers, I do all kinds of stuff like that. And so the more I write, the more I get noticed, the more I'm on podcasts, the more I get noticed. And so it all is very, very, it's snowballed quite a bit. As you know, like I'm not the guy who enjoys speaking a ton. I do this because I know that I need to do it. I'm not the biggest fan of it. If you know me, I'm a 100% introvert who knows how to turn it on when I need to. But after this call, I'm literally just going to pile into my sofa and get away from like having to be on for this amount of time. But it's necessary for sure.
It's I love that. I just love the honesty too, because there's a lot of recruiters I talk to that they're nervous. What happens if I put myself out there, right? Introvert, and I've never been accused of being an introvert. So I don't have that experience, but I've worked with people, and it's just that's why I love that you're doing this, and that you're out, and that you wrote the book, and that you're out there, because it's important. Like, it's totally doable, and a lot of times your words resonate more than even a loudmouth like me, because people know that it's right. It's like, it's kind of, the talk, talk softly and carry a big stick. Like, it has an impact when you do speak up. And I think sure that I know that resonates with, with your content and reading through your book. It's like, it was just like direct, and it was felt very much like learned. Like you had learned this the hard way, with clients or on your own. And in a world full of a lot of noise and loudmouths, like it's nice to be able to just cut through the noise, which like with something that's true and like actionable. That's what people are looking for. So it's awesome. It's good that you put yourself out there. It inspires others.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. It does make me happy to see people learning, be it an HR admin or a new HR person or a business owner who goes, wow, this is why we have people who are in talent acquisition, or this is why we have people who are in compensation or recruitment or whatever it might be. We actually see your value, and you're not just a person who's actually making us, check boxes. And when you see that, and they see the win that you give them as a leader, you really become the valuable business partner that we all sort of aspire to be in HR.
It's amazing feedback, and it is. I mean, just by putting that out there, that wins out there, it's a rising tides lifts all ships kind of thing. And the amount of coaching I do, where it's like, hey, hiring managers typically have no idea what you actually do, what you're doing, and sometimes even HR with agency recruiters, they still don't know, right? What we actually do on a day-to-day basis, or the work that goes into it. And most talent recruiters like, hey, show your work. Right? You don't have to necessarily complain about how hard your job is, but they got to understand the depths that you're doing to get the result that they want. And that's important. So you putting that out there like, hey, this is, 100, almost 200 pages of just, I would say of the hiring process. They're like, oh, that's a lot more than just posting a job on Indeed. It's like, yeah, like it is. So, and yes, it's a low barrier to entry industry. So I would say there's a lot of recruiters that maybe aren't the most well equipped to do what they need to do, but the great ones are great and are worth their weight in gold. And it is nice to kind of, I think when you write a book like that, it elevates the standard. All right, we're back. Slight hiccup, technical difficulties. It's all good. It happens, but the show goes on in show business. So we're getting into the book writing process. So like for me, I've had people mention, oh, you should write a book. I'm like, I don't even think I'm ready to write a book. Like, I don't think, I don't know if what are the last chapter, how it would end up. And I think of also a very intimidating process for me, even though I post every day. I'm like, oh, I don't know, like, how would I do that? And I know kind of our audience was like, well, starting a podcast or writing a book, like, what is that even like? So how did you tackle the book writing, like, process? Did you write everything all at once, and then you said kind of sit on it for a little bit? How was the editing? Like, how'd you tackle this thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. One of the first things I did is I sat down and said, what are the things that I want to convey, right?
Yeah.
Frankly, one of my friends, Kim, she posted something about the book after I wrote it. She goes, if you know my friend Bill, the book title speaks to who he is. As I mentioned earlier, I just can't stand nonsense. And so I was like, why does everyone effing suck at recruiting? And so instead of saying don't effing suck at recruiting, I just said don't suck at recruiting. And from there, I just, I did some research, like, how long should a book be? What generally, if I'm talking about recruitment, what are the things that I'm seeing out there online? And then do I have a way that I'm doing this that's unique? I know what I'm sharing with my team. And so let's break down how I and how we do this at TPC. And so from there, I said, okay, well, I've got, 9, 10, 11, 12 chapters. And so how long should this generally be? And so I'm like, okay, it needs to be this many words, should be this general character count. So let's just start stream of consciousness writing. And so that's what I started doing, is just like I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And then I'm like, that's not really great, but, I'll come back to it later. And so then I had a draft. And, I shared it with some loved ones and some friends. And then one of the people who works for me, I said, can you help me? Like, I think you have a really smart brain. And he's like, sure. And so he went through it and like marked it up. And then I have a friend who's actually an editor, and she marked it up. And so between the two of them, I sort of understand what my voice was. And then, we said, okay, we should, have a formula for every chapter. Like I have like a unique story, right? And then you read the book, and then I try to be a little funny. I'm not that funny, but I try to be funny and make it relatable. And I'm not a guru, so it's just like normal conversation, normal language, and then have a little quiz at the end so people have retention. And after I did it the first time, I was like, okay, I see how this works, and so I just literally did the same for every single chapter. And then I had my bonus chapter, which is just like I stream of conscious all the time. So this is just like a download of all the things that I think that you might want to have. And that was it. And after that, I paid to have all this stuff done, like the book cover and like the IMDb, the ISBN and the Library of Congress. And then I uploaded it to Amazon and said, okay, here it is, and made my announcement on LinkedIn, and that was it. And, here we are almost a year later, and it's there, and it's got some good reviews, and a few people have bought it and tell me great things, and that's it. That's a process.
it's an interesting breakdown because it's like it seems when you put it that way, it seems not less difficult or less like of a challenge, but it's like. Yeah, you just have to kind of work through things. And I'm even thinking, well, this is how I post and I work through things, and I have an editor, or sometimes I have someone that helps me, takes my words and comes up with some ideas for me as well. It's kind of a really collaborative process is what I'm hearing. That's why I tell people, like, especially in our program, I'm like, hey, where are the editors for you? As you start to write, write the stream of consciousness, send it to us, and we'll help you figure out what to actually say on LinkedIn. So we are definitely not book editors. We are LinkedIn social media post editors and know what's going on there. But that's the collaboration process, and that community, even if it's a small circle, is so important. Even though your name's on the cover, it starts to be real when you hear the I couldn't have done this without so and so. It's like, oh yeah, that is how it all actually happens. And I think sometimes it's just nice to hear the breakdown of. It's a big project, but you can tackle it, right? You just got to have the right people around you. So it's super cool. And I did love the quizzes, by the way. So, yeah, I've never really seen that in a recruiting sales book before. And I love that. What inspired you to, or how'd you come up with that? And kind of what was the purpose of kind of putting that in there?
Well, I wanted people to walk away, and it's a learning tool. This is for people who either recruits, are new recruiters, or they're a business who, sees the title and think, oh, that's kind of funny. And it's a small book. It's 150 pages. I can probably tackle that pretty easily. And once you start reading it, you're like, oh, this is decent, right? The guy, it seems like he knows what he's talking about. And then when you get to the end of the chapter, it should be retention. I want these people to remember the things that I shared, and actually put them be they're actionable things they can actually do. So if you have 5 or 7 questions, it reminds you to go back and maybe read again, understand it, know it. So when you walk away from the book, it's not just these 150 pages that you read. Maybe you have 6 things that you can remember and then act upon them. So I should probably write my job description this way and let the people see themselves in the job. I remember Bill had that in the book. Or I should, go out in the community and do this to make myself more known. Or I should have my employees all talk about why they love working here. And then I should, revamp my website. These things that are really basic that you and I know and that recruiters know. I want them to do this. Again, never a guru. I just know how to do things, and I want people to do them themselves. And I want them to be able to see the value. Selfishly, if they want to hire me to do it and I like them and they like me, of course I'll do it. Yeah. But they can honestly do this themselves, mostly, right? But people just need to see it broken down in a no nonsense way. That's not complicated, and that's what I think I provide in the book. And it brings me great joy to have people write me a message and go, "Hey, Bill, I really loved this, and I'm actually using this right now." Or I gave a copy to all my hiring managers. I got an email, 5-6 months ago. This guy bought 10 copies of the book and gave one to every single one of his hiring managers, and he emails me with updates, which is pretty fantastic, right? Yeah. So I did my job. That in itself, I think, was the big one for me.
That's really cool, and it's a lot more fun than making 100 cold calls a day. right?
True,
Than to
true.
doing that to get business and business development. So, was that kind of a consideration when you were thinking of business development with your company? Was like, all right, do I put content in a book, or do I just do it? A bunch of cold calls, a bunch of cold emails, or maybe you still do that in compliment, or like, how do you? Is
Yeah.
this like the business development vehicle for you?
I mean, it's one of them. I mean, let's be
Yeah.
honest. If I'm being more honest than I've ever even told many, but there was a strategy behind the book, and then like this huge campaign behind it, and we fell down a little bit. It didn't go as well as we had liked, but we still like. I have a team of people who are sending out like X number of emails a week, a month, and that is getting some traction. I probably could have leaned in more with it, early on, but it's not hurting me, and it still adds value. I can say I literally wrote the book on like recruitment, or a book on recruitment, and people immediately give me like credibility because there it is right there. And
Yeah.
they, Google me. The thing about business is that, that people, with the day and age that we live in, they're immediately going to Google you and see what they can find out about you. And for me, at least, it's, 99.9% good. I hope, like I did have a controversy last week, but, but I leaned into it, and, it wasn't even bad at the end of the day. Yeah, it adds value, but it was definitely part of like a strategic plan, and we still use it, just not the way that I thought that I would initially use it. And having the book does add a lot of value and credibility to who I am, and for the most part, I can talk the talk about all the things. I always do want to sort of lower standards a bit in a way of letting people know that I'm not Joel or Kevin, or like all these people have these huge names in recruitment. I'm not that guy. I'm just a guy who's like, small potatoes, who thinks that I want to add value to both employers and candidates and a few of my peers. And I think that I do that. And I try to give back. Every week I give a couple hours of free to people who are looking for support, because again, for me, giving back and being kind matters. It pays off in relationships. And relationships, I think, are the most important thing to me in life, in personal life, and business as well.
Yeah, they definitely are, and I love that you're like, hey, I'm definitely not a guru, even though you've written a book, but I know what you mean, and it's still with the the not over promising is a huge part of this industry. It's where a lot of people get off the wrong foot in terms of recruiters and agency recruiters. Is, oh, I got this, I can fill a job, and yet they have no idea what it even pays. So they have no idea, versus kind of taking the set. So it sounds like, I mean, that's kind of a big piece for you, which is like methodically working through like where the company is at, like what they've done before you kind of jump the gun. It's like really working through your process to make sure that this even is the right company or the right role, right, for you to impact. Is that kind of on track? Yeah.
For me, I mean, at this point in my life, I'm in a place where I work with who I want to work with. I don't need your business. You don't need my help. We want to make sure that we like each other. And so if those two things work and I feel that I can add value and you're going to follow my plan, I mean, anyone who knows me knows I like things to be done the way that I like them to be done. And it's a running joke, but it's also very true. If I work with you, I will deliver on what I say I'm going to deliver on, but you need to follow my plan. And if you don't want to follow my plan, that's okay. It's just not going to work for me, because I don't want to work with people who suck. Right. So that's my philosophy, but I want to make sure that if I'm going to put my name behind it and I'm supporting you and I'm doing recruitment process outsourcing on your behalf, and my name's out there or my team's name's out there, that you're actually a good company that cares for the people, that wants to do the right thing, that can add value to training, development, and like building this employee up. Like that's what I wanted to be part of. If you don't know how to do it, that's fine, but you want to do it, let me help you get there. But if you don't do it because you don't want to do it, because it's about money or profit or about gross stuff, not that money and profit are gross, because they're great actually, but like I think you understand what I'm saying. Like it should be about your people. That's the only differentiator that you have as an employer, are your people. And when you take care of them and you show them that you value them, not just by words but actions, and you give them autonomy, these are the things that are going to help make people want to run into the fire with you and do the things that you want them to do, and do them even without you asking them to do it, because they know that you have their back, right? And that's something that I think I've consistently done as a leader, and personally, for my own teams, but also trying to show employers how to do the same. So that's sort of my formula, and it was a long way to get to the answer of your question, but yes, it matters to me.
It all matters. And yeah, you take care of the people. And as you said, that's giving them a plan, systems, the ability to execute, showing that you have their back, especially when the chips are down. That's what leads to revenue, and it's just to profitability. I think people just get the order of operations wrong, right? And then wonder why they're struggling. But the pushback on clients, like I don't want, it's almost like it feels like it comes natural to you. It does not come naturally to a lot of recruiters, and it's like pushing back on clients. It's like, oh, how do I even do that, right? It's a lot of what I coach. Especially my consulting clients or kind of executive business coaching clients. It's like, how do we push back? How do we fire clients? Right? It's a big area. Did that always kind of come naturally to you? Did you develop like a system around that? Like, how do you even go about that?
I mean, I'll be very honest. I'm always very direct. I always have been. I think I've probably said this 20 times, and anyone who watches this or knows me will say, yeah, Bill will tell you what he thinks for sure. But I think that you can do it in a kind enough way where they get it. I think the challenge that a lot of us have is we're people pleasers. It's okay to be a people pleaser, but you have to also find your voice and be authentic to yourself. And lots of people say all these fluffy words like authentic and find yourself and all these nonsense things sometimes. And even that comment might come back to haunt me that it's not nonsense. It's just you've got to be able to say and understand what is going to make you happy. I have my own company and my own companies, and I work for myself, and I'm in a position where I can do this freer than I was in the past. But my last probably 5 or 6 years of working, I really understood who I was, and I asked for what I wanted. And I said, this works or this doesn't work. And I could, agree with my supervisor and say, okay, I will do the work that I need to do because I'm required to do it. But let me tell you why I think there may be a better way of doing this. Right. And so one of my mentors said, you've always got to tell your clients, internal clients, meaning, if you're an HR leader and you're working with clients for recruitment, let them know what your expectation of delivery is, right? So if you're going to say, I can fill this job in 46 days, but here are the things that I need from you to make this work. If you can do these things for me, then I'm going to be able to do these things for you. But this is a partnership. Yes, I'm actually technically doing the work, but if I'm finding candidates for you and they're qualified and we've determined what are the 3 key things they need to do that actually make them be able to do this job, and present them to you, and you say, I don't know, this is just something about them that I don't get. You're not following the plan. What are the things we've set in place? You're not doing your part. So if you can't do your part, I can't do my part. We're not going to hire this person in 46 days. It'll be maybe 95 if you half-ass do this, right? So you've got to let them know where you stand and what works and what doesn't work. And when people understand this, it's been my experience that they actually will respect that you give them how you expect to receive information. When I talk to clients, I'm like, the best way to contact me is this way, this way, this way. The best way that I receive work is this way, this way, this way. What works for you? Right. And so you have that conversation and they understand what works for you. You understand what works for them. And maybe if there's a little bit of negotiating that needs to happen, that's okay. But I'm very clear about what I want and what I need. And it is like I'm supporting them as much as they're supporting me. They're supporting me from a financial perspective, but I'm supporting them by delivering on the people needs that they have in the organization. And so I'm a value add for them, and they do understand that. And so you've got to like walk into the situation understanding that you're a value add. You're not just a something. Like, you hired me as an expert. I am the expert. Let's get this shit done.
That's just an amazing clip right there. That we'll have to clip out because it's perfect. That's exactly it, from knowing what your boundaries are, your processes, your role in the equation. It's to what you said earlier. You were in HR, but with a business mind. And I think you just explained, I was going to ask you about that, but I think you kind of just clarified it, right? That it's like, this is the process and this is how you understand how you impact their bigger business goals. And that you're actually knowing that you're a cog in the wheel is why it makes it more critical for them to give you what you need. Versus, I think, right, sometimes recruiters are like, oh, this is everything to that recruiter. but they almost put so much pressure on themselves because of that. They don't let it, almost like not understanding your role has a negative impact. Because then if you do understand your role, you can be a specialist in that role. And then you actually get what you want. Right. And you get the result for what everyone wants.
True. I mean, to sort of go back one more second to your saying, has it always come easy for me? Yes and no. I mean, I remember being a consultant early on and, wanting to just get the business. We get close, right? We're like, oh my God, I've got this new gig and I can, perhaps work with them for a year, 6 months or whatever it might be. And I found myself, and this is maybe one of the things that I learned that I 100% lean into now. If someone's shitty initially with you about your price or about your work product or whatever, they're going to be that way throughout, and they're going to cause great distress for you and like the way you deliver product or output. And once you realize that that's not what you want to work with, and you've been burned once or twice, then I think that really helps give you the voice. Either you can learn from someone who's been through that, or you can go, okay, I know what I don't like or what I don't need and what I do need to do to be successful. And so I walk right in to every single situation going, this is what you need to expect from me, and this is what I'm going to give to you. If this doesn't work for you up front, that's totally fine. If you need like 20 minutes for me to sort of like guide you in the right path, I'm happy to do that. It's just that we're not going to work well together because these are the things that I need to do to support myself and support the people who work for me, because like anyone who works for me knows that I have their back and I'm not dealing with the nonsense. And I can see how I'm coming across, but like I care about people, but I don't suffer fools. That's 100% how I work. And so if it works for you, then you'll get what you need. But like we need to make sure that we understand that I see you as a value. You need to see me as a value too.
It's the only way to succeed in the industry where communication is everything and is number one. And it's so easy for things to get lost in translation so quickly. And I think what you're summing up is be willing to walk away. And I think that's the biggest lesson if you're an owner, a recruiter, is put yourself in a position where you can walk away and be okay. And I think that's like get into that place. That opens the door to a whole other world that's a lot more rewarding and a lot more fun.
True.
And I think like fighting for that world to me is a worthwhile fight. I know it has been for you and has been for me as well. That's where recruiting can become, dare I say it, fun. Because then you're working with like-minded people all day, every day, every call and all that stuff. And that's what I look at is I want all my calls every day. I want to be excited about them. Like for this, like this podcast or client calls or group calls. Like if I'm not pumped about it, I got to figure out how to get that off my schedule. It's really all it is.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. You start in the book focusing on the candidate experience, something we talk about all the time. The buzzwords of digital recruiter are empathy, scaling empathy and authenticity, right? Jargon words. And I love that you just tackle jargon words right away. I don't like buzzwords, jargon words. It took me weeks to figure out what recruiters and agencies actually did because it was all buzzwords on their websites. I was so unsure until my first day at Aerotech, and I was like, oh, I got to pick up the phone, call a forklift driver and see if he's a fit for this forklift driver job. Like, why didn't anyone just say that in the beginning? Because it felt like so confusing. But you talk in the very beginning, focus on the candidate, which I think everyone, not just companies, but recruiters could like, again, what you're saying is focus on the other party, right? What is in it for them? If you're trying to get a response from someone, what's in it for them? When has the candidate experience kind of always been, again, top of mind? Is it something kind of developed over time? Or why did you start with that?
Well, I mean, I think that was actually chapter 3 of my book originally. And then my friend who's an editor, she's like, Bill, this is literally what your book's about is the candidate experience. And so you really need to lean into that.
It's a good editor.
And also it's a subtitle of your book. So why are you starting in chapter 3? And it's true. I mean, in addition to the initial story of, seeing how people were not being great at recruitment, prior to, starting my own company, I remember being a person who was interviewing for HR roles as, second or first person and really having a crappy experience and thinking, what is happening? I'm literally going to be the top guy in HR. I'm literally going to be the person who's going to be your boss. Like, why are you treating me like this? And so, and then, when you look at feedback, like, our research, like 72% of people who have had a negative candidate experience, they've shared that experience with, someone on a site like, We know these review sites of employers. And so is that what you want? Because at that point, people will see it and go, I'm not going to shop there. I'm not going to give that person a business. So when you start with a clear, robust candidate experience, the application process is swift. The interviewers are respectful of the time. They really know what they're looking for, and they give that to the candidate. They share the entire process with the candidate. Say, it typically takes 5 weeks. Here are the 5 steps that we go through. Here's how we get there. Here's how we're going to involve you. Here's what you can expect for communication. You share that with someone, and you actually follow through with it. They go, okay, I didn't get the job, but they follow the plan, right? And so I don't feel bad or ghosted or treated improperly, or someone's on their phone like, oh, yeah, tell me more. Cool, that's whatever. Like, what the fuck? Excuse my language, but like, honestly, like you've got to be able to treat people the way you want to be treated. I mean, if that's sort of like the thesis of my book is just step back and picture yourself as a candidate. We were all there as young people who were trying, hoping, wishing that someone would give us the time of the day, give us the time of day. And then we got there. We did our job well. We've risen in the ranks. We're a leader now. And we sometimes forget about that. Like, would you treat your son or your daughter, or your niece, or your son's friend that way? Probably not. But if you need to think about that, and if you sort of give away that experience, I think that sets you apart. I know that it sets you apart. I mean, data supports that.
It's so great. I mean, good on your editor for bumping that up to the top. And you're right. I mean, even with the best candidates that are maybe weighing an offer or anything else like that, the impression you leave when it comes down to maybe your company or another one is, well, I got treated like I know what to expect from this company, just from the plan and the system, and almost like they were able to call their shot ahead of time with, here's how it's going to go interviewing with us the next few weeks. And there's been more, I've heard of more declined offers, counter offers, all that this year than almost ever before in certain industries. So like, it's critical to kind of be able to show that consistency throughout the process is the difference maker with candidates, especially the best candidates. And it lets them be comfortable getting in the weeds with you too.
I agree. I mean, it's a failure a bit of employers when there's so many tools that are available to help you be on top of these things. I mean, applicant tracking systems have, reply to the guy within 24 hours or within
setting, right? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even if it's canned a bit, right? At least you're following a process and you're in communication. Candidates they expect to hear back from you within a few days of an interview, at most within a week. And so when you're, hemming and hawing about what you want to do, what is happening? You can't just message someone and say like, hey, we're still interviewing, but you will hear back from me by X. If you don't, I give you permission to call me and ask me what's going on. And when they call you, don't act like you're bent out of shape about it. Like, oh my God, Clark, thanks so much for calling me. Yes, I know that it's a little bit longer than we expected, but we are moving through the process. People just want to be included, informed. And when you do that and you respect them, you're better off. Many years ago, and this may not be completely applicable today, one of my leaders in recruiting said, a valuable candidate is as good as a carton of milk. Once that expires, they're done. And so you should remember that, right? And that's like one thing I remember is like, why are we taking 17 years to interview all these people? Let's get through this stuff in like 10 days or 15 days. And it's possible. It might be a little bit accelerated, but if you understand what you want going into the recruitment process and you really you clearly follow that plan and everyone understands their part, why are they involved in the process, making their schedules available, being clear about like ranking them, and understanding what that means and getting rid of the ambiguous, you can really hire someone in a really quick time that meets the expectations of what you're looking for.
That's the blueprint. And I know you talk about automation, recruitment software. You talk about building a brand and the interview process, questions to ask. I love the quizzes. It reminds me of a post that we had, because we talked about branding and ways that clients and the candidates hurt their brand on our group content call today, on our workshop call in our program. And so it's so interesting that now we're recording this afternoon because it was the topic of the day apparently, and how easy it is. And I think she had a great line. The headline was, it's a lot of my clients come to me because they were never actually trained on how to hire, but they're in a hiring role. And so being able to, for her to post that out there, get that out there, and kind of let hiring managers are like, hey, it's all right. If you were never trained on it, like, you're not alone, but we have to fix it. Right. And so, like, and that's where it come in. And like, that's like, we get more recruiters like her, like you, posting about that, talking about that, like, that creating that awareness is great. I think people need to know that it's like not a shameful thing because no one really does train on it, but you got to work on it. You got to fix it. And when it does, like, amazing things can happen.
It's true. I mean, one of a contact on LinkedIn was messaging me last night, and she said she thinks one of the largest challenges that we have in our space as recruiters is that not a lot of us are trained on how to actually be good recruiters. So someone like you or I, who's done this for a while, actually, has proven to be a good recruiter and has probably some training, has done some things. We can, do it well and effectively. But what happens many times is, I don't want to poop on agency recruiters, but they'll hire people who just like churn and burn, and that gives us a bad reputation. And so instead of understanding their bosses and their bosses' bosses from a people perspective, how are we like understanding what it is these people can do, how they can add value to our clients, right? If we're going to be selling them, like, I'm going to send you this anonymous candidates for your role or whatever it might be, right? Yeah. So we have to be able to be effective and understand what it is we're doing. Not everyone can do recruitment, because the reason I get hired all the time is because people are like, oh, I thought I could hire 15 people, and now I realize there's all these things that I didn't even know I needed to do, or now my brand reputation is horrible, or like we don't have a good onboarding system. Like, so we have to be able to be effective and really be the resource for people. And if we don't have the tools as a recruiter, or if you don't have the tool as a hiring manager, you need to be able to seek out people who can actually give you welcome advice that actually helps you be better at what you do.
Yeah. The tools and like the science of recruiting, as I talk about, like the tech stack, that's easy, right? You can hop on, you can Google search, sign up for a bunch of tools. LinkedIn will happily take your money on like LinkedIn Recruiter and all that stuff. But kind of the tools you're talking about, like the art of recruiting, right? That those, how to have the conversations, how to handle the nuance, and kind of reading between the lines and being able to call that out, like having that learning development, having that part of the process, mandating it with your agency and with your team. I'm extremely biased because I run a coaching program and a consultant program, but I do that because of how important it was for me at Aerotech. I got amazing training, and the impact that they had on my life. It gave me this career. As someone that's kind of middling around at 26, and really, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up at 26. It just kind of becomes a problem. It gave me an opportunity. That training gave me that structure. That eventually turned into this. And it's so great. And I can't believe the meat grinder agency recruiters go through at most places. There's a small firm where there's a computer and a phone book. I mean, sometimes I think a real phone book still at some agencies that they're given. And it's just like, well, here you go recruit. I'm like, what? Like, and I'm just astonished with some of the stories that I hear and recruiters that are struggling. I'm like, yeah, no wonder you're like, no one is giving you anything to have even a medium amount of success.
That's from like 2000 or something. That's not even from like where we're at today.
I'm telling you, there's owners that in the 80s, from the 80s, 90s are like cold call away, phone book. That's how you make money. Not realizing that there's 20 times the agencies in the world right now, or maybe probably even a higher number than that. And so there's way more competition. Everyone can cold email and cold call and spam call. Like, the same tactics don't work. They're not nearly as effective because there's a bunch of noise, right? It's like showing up to the gold rush in 1949, not 1849. Like,
well, I'm here, guys. I'm here. Yeah. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the war's over. It's like 1812? No, World War II. What? Yeah. So it's. Oh man, we could go off track real quick, but all right. I want to leave. Listeners, you got the what? You got the fruit farm. What's popping this year?
What you mean for work?
For fruit? For because you mentioned it's been a couple years now. What are you hoping to see?
Well, I've got a couple dozen fruit trees here, so
Uh,
I'd love to see some grapefruits. I'd love to see some peaches and plums, some apples. I think all those things are possible this year. Outside right now, there's lots of blooms. It's super exciting. And if people don't know, I'm a huge gardener. During the day, I'm just gardening. At nighttime, I'm working. I live in Portugal full time at this point, so that's why I said it in that order. So my clients are typically based on the West Coast and a little bit in the middle of the country in America. So I can garden in the daytime and then be the HR guy at nighttime. And so that's what I'm hoping for and looking forward to, as
that's
well as
so
like my
cool.
gardens. Yeah.
If you push back on hiring managers, you too can garden during the day and recruit in the afternoon or night, and have grapefruits and apples and peaches. I'm very jealous. That sounds like I know it sounds like a five amazing pies right there alone. But again, that's the fat guy in me versus just eating the healthy fruit as is. But that's super cool. I had to get that out there because I just thought that was super cool from the first time we talked. Um, What's I guess the one like piece of advice you would give, let's say, what we talk about, someone that's like maybe seeking out a mentor, whether it's HR, recruiting, how would you go about that?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, like, 'cause you and I each have mentors. Like, how should a recruiter say seek out a mentor? Like, what should they be looking for?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would, identify the people that you think have a voice. It doesn't need to be someone like us who's all over the LinkedIn's and
Yeah.
social media. It just needs to be a person that you respect and that others respect, and that they clearly have demonstrated that they've been and seen success. So I would look inside at the network that they have. Hopefully they do have a network. I would look in the industry that they're in. If it's semiconductors, like find a you want to be a really great semiconductor recruiter, like find someone who's sort of already in that space and successful. And I would let them know that I really respect what you're doing. I'm new at this, or I could be more improved in this, and I think that you do a really good job. Would you mind giving me a little bit of your time when I have a question? I'm not going to bog you down, but if that's something that you're interested in doing, I would love to learn from you. Honestly, people like people who like them, and so if you let them know that you're a fan of them, people more times than not will make the time to help you more times than not. And so for me, I've been lucky that some people have volunteered to mentor me, and and other times, as quiet as I am, I'm also driven to get exactly what I want. I've asked people, do you mind if I could be someone that you would give a little bit of time to if I have a question? I think you're really cool and really smart, and like I liked it when you did X, Y, or Z. Like, let them understand and see why you think that they are the guru that you think that they might be.
I knew you'd have a good answer to that. And you had a great answer, because I think people get nervous reaching out, and I think just doing a little bit of research or talk about what resonates, it does mean a lot. I do like getting messages like that, like, "Oh, I love your podcast." I'm like, I just got this app and I just pressed record. Like, I didn't know what else I was doing. You know what I mean? It's like, it is cool to kind of say stuff and have it mean something. And when people have said that to me and asked for some time, or hey, I'm looking for a job or some advice or anything else, I'm like, all right, like, yeah, let's talk. 15, 20 minutes. With that approach is great. So.
I think one last thing. So when I was at Transform, a guy that I met through a conversation, every week I try to have about 10 to 20 LinkedIn conversations for 10 to 15 minutes. And he said, I actually just swing big. He's like, I contacted, the head of Sherm. I contacted the head of Varna Media. And he's like, you'd be surprised how many people actually just say, yes, I'll have a conversation with you. And now I'm being mentored. So, just do it. What's the worst that could happen? Someone says no. Even if you are nervous, just do it. I think it's probably the best advice I would give for that scenario. But
shoot your shot.
I know you wanted to, yes, shoot your shot. What was the last thing you were going to ask me? I'm sorry.
I was just saying anything that we want to leave the listeners with, but you kind of did. Is shoot your shot. I mean, that's the name of the game. I think with outreach, with business development, building a brand, and then just shoot your shot. Probably could be also the title of this episode. Although it's probably going to be "Don't Suck at Recruiting." But no, it's great advice. I think having managed dozens of accounts on LinkedIn and seeing the calls that I booked for people that had maybe even 500 connections or even less than that. We're talking about seeing CMOs at Walgreens and all this different stuff. Like you'd be really surprised. You just got to put yourself in a position to, I would say, get there and capitalize on that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, like last bit, you and I had a conversation before we started, and I was telling you how fantastic I think you are with doing your podcast, and you're like, you're so fantastic with your book, and so we both are marveling at the things that we do, and maybe some people who are watching this are thinking, book guy, podcast guy, going back to a couple paragraphs ago, shoot your shot, just do it, and you'd be amazed at the results that you'll get. I mean, it's just a matter of taking the time and making the commitment to give yourself what you want and what you need.
Absolutely. You never know what could happen. So, well, I appreciate it, Bill. So your book, Don't Suck at Recruiting, on Amazon, probably anywhere else you could buy a book, right? Goodreads, but everyone goes to Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon.
So we'll have your LinkedIn profile on there because I'm sure you're not the only Bill Brown out there, but maybe the most important one. But we'll have the link in the URL in the episode description and page. Bill, thank you for being here, man. It is awesome.
My absolute pleasure to get to talk to you, and I hope that someone has learned something today from our conversation. I appreciate you. And
there's a lot to learn from you on this one, so no, this will be good, and you'll be getting some messages from people. So again, appreciate you, and we'll get this thing out, and good luck with the fruit, man. I'm excited to see what comes out.
Maybe I'll post a picture. Thanks so much.
I think that's great content. Yeah, absolutely.